I can read now. If then evil and falsehood are natural products of the inconscience, automatic results of the evolution of life and mind from it in the processes of the ignorance, we have to see how they arise and on what they depend for their existence and what is the remedy or escape. Okay, so we'll do each sentence one by one. If then falsehood and evil and falsehood are natural products of the inconscience. You remember, there is an involution and there is an evolution. So in the involution, you are starting from the divine. And the divine can't go wrong because he knows where he is going and what he wants. So that there is no distortion of these planes. There is a diminution, but there is no distortion. Okay? And so these planes are pure planes of, if you start from the highest level, Sat, Chit, Ananda, Supermind, mind, life, body. These are the 7 planes of consciousness. We follow the 7 planes plan because Srimad follows that based on the Vedas. You could have 12 planes, you could have 2 planes, 3 planes. In fact, many sometimes we talk only of 3 planes. The gross, the subtle, and the causal. So it depends on how you are doing. We are doing the 7 planes. So the 7 planes are pure planes. And in these worlds, there is no suffering, no evil, no pain, nothing at all. Okay? They are absolutely divine, but they are static. And they are also typal. They don't evolve. Okay? So these come down. So this is the downward ladder if you want. Then when you are starting from the evolution, this is the involution, and the evolution, you are starting from inconscience. You are starting from no consciousness. You are starting from darkness. You are starting from ignorance. So you don't know where you are going. So naturally you have to struggle to go up. And when you are starting from everything negative, the results also are likely to go to a negative. So that's exactly what happens. And that's what Swami is asking now. So at what point does evil and falsehood enter in this evolutionary process? Okay? So in the previous paragraphs also he has told us that in matter, there is no evil because there is no duality. Evil and good and suffering, sin and virtue are dualities. But at the highest level there is oneness, and at the lowest level also there is oneness. So if there is oneness in matter or in conscience, there can be no dualities, and therefore there can be no evil and suffering. Okay, so this is what he's saying basically. He's questioning and he is not looking at the process. If then evil and falsehood are natural products of the inconscious, automatic results of the evolution of life. See, very clearly, inconscience you're starting from, and now he's talking of the evolution, not the involution. Evolution of life and mind from it, the inconscience, in the processes of the ignorance. Now he has suddenly gone to a word, processes. So let me see whether it's a slight different meaning from process. Sometimes Srimbu is so familiar with Latin that he Latinizes. So just I'll see whether it's an English word. Just 1 minute. Processes. Processes meaning as in an unintended part in the course of action. My God, see how accurate Srimbu is. Okay. So the difference in process and processes is this. Okay. As in, it's the meaning is the same. Processes and process. But as an unintended part of a course of action. She would make him pay for this even if she killed herself in the process. Unintended part. So you are looking for, and it's an unintended part of the course of action. This is why he has used the word processes. Okay, it does exist in the dictionary. Meaning does exist. Okay, so and
in the process.
Okay. So then that's what he's saying. So now let us see what happens in the process of evolution. I go to the next sentence. Okay. And we have to also see how we can remedy the problem or how we can escape the suffering and evil. In the surface emergence of mental and vital consciousness from the inconscience, in the surface emergence of mental and inconscience is bound to be found the process by which these phenomena come into being. So he's saying the phenomena of evil, suffering, pain, and falsehood is sure to be found in the rise of mental and vital consciousness. Okay? Is to be found the process by which these phenomena come into being. Here, there are two determining factors, and it is these that are the efficient cause of the simultaneous emergence of falsehood and evil. Now, he has used the word efficient cause. There are two types of causes. Okay, this in philosophy you often discuss this: efficient cause and material cause. Okay, there are two types of causes. The cause of the jar. Okay, a jar is made of matter, so matter is the material cause of a jar. But the efficient cause of a jar is the potter, the one who makes the pot. Okay, so Srimad is speaking of the efficient cause of the simultaneous emergence of falsehood and evil. Okay, so certainly they come up. So what are the two elements are there? He said there are two determining factors. So first of all, there is an underlying, a still occult consciousness and power of inherent knowledge. And there is also an overlying layer of what might be called indeterminate or else ill-formed stuff of vital and physical consciousness. Okay, so two things are there. There is an intention in the inconscience. The intention is the divine will which has hidden itself. Okay, but it has become very small and very insignificant, but there it is still divine essentially. Not fully, essentially. That's the first thing. And the second one is the inconscience itself. And that inconscience is he's calling it ill-formed stuff of vital and physical consciousness. The matter is a stuff. It's a the material cause. Okay, so that is also there. Okay, so ill-formed stuff. The substance itself. Okay, that is there. Through this obscure, difficult medium, the medium of something which is ill-formed stuff of, it is thick, dense, it is not like light, okay? It is not light and it is not something subtle. It's very gross, ill-formed stuff of vital and physical consciousness. Through this obscure, difficult medium, the emerging mentality has to force its way and has to impose itself on the constructed. Just once again. It has to force itself. The mental substance is much purer than the vital substance, and even the vital substance is much subtler than the material substance. And even the material substance is, compared to the inconscience, it is subtler. Okay. However gross it seems to be to us, it is much less gross than the inconscience. Okay, so this gradation is there, and the matter has to simply saying mentality has to force its way and has to impose itself on it by constructed and no longer an inherent knowledge. So constructed knowledge. Okay, we know very well that when we are thinking, these are constructions. Okay, when I'm trying to think of something, if I can make a picture of it in my mind, that's a construction. And it can disappear also. The construction, a mental construction can disappear. So it's only a mental construction. It's not the real thing. Okay, it's not a real thing. The inherent knowledge is not there. It's a mental construction. Mental construction like a photograph. Okay. A photograph is a mental construction of whatever is the original. Suppose you are there and you have a photograph of you. The photograph is a construction. It can be destroyed. Okay. So all human thinking are constructions only, not the real stuff. Okay. So they are symbolic, they are representations, they are pictures only. So these two things are there. There is a divine knowledge hiding in the inconscient, very, very inconspicuous, very seemingly unimportant, but it is there. And the top, it has to deal with a substance which is gross. That's what Sylvia is saying. The two things are there. Okay? Next, the emergence takes place in a separated form of life which has to affirm itself against the principle of inanimate material inertia and a constant pull of that material inertia towards disintegration and a relapse into the original inanimate inconscience. Now, very interesting sentence. Let's have a look at it very, very carefully. Next, the image. So, the emergence takes place in a separated form of life. He is using 4 words. A separated form of life. Life in original is one everywhere. It is a principle of life. But when we understand life, when we see creatures, they are separated forms. Okay? Separated. Little bit of matter is taken and life is pumped into it. So it's a separated form of life. Life, unseparated life, is the principle of prana, which is universal. It is one. But the forms from matter, when life comes and it makes separate forms. Worms, caterpillars, cats, dogs, human beings, trees, plants, etc. Okay, separated forms. They are separate, which has to affirm itself against the principle of inanimate material inertia. Okay, inanimate, no life. Material inertia. Also remember, material matter is tamas. It's the principle of permanence. Okay, so that which is life is impermanence. It is full of, it is moving. Matter is not moving. So life has to struggle against matter. Okay, this is the interesting part. So who wins? Okay? All forms of life have to struggle against matter. Matter is trying to keep the status quo and life is trying to change. But at that level, in another part of life, Divani says very clearly, this battle between life and matter, matter usually wins because life ends in death. So matter wins. Okay. Then with the quarrel between life and mind also. If you remember the chapter, there was a chart that we made. If you remember, matter, life, mind, supermind. So I don't know if you remember, but we had made a chart. Okay. And all the characteristics of matter, characteristics of life, characteristics of mind, and characteristics of supermind. So in this fight, matter usually wins because life ends in death. Okay. So next, the emergence takes place in a separated form of life, which has to affirm itself against the principle of inanimate material inertia. He is using 4 words rather. Principle of inanimate material inertia. Tamas, the principle of stability, to ensure the forms which are stable. Okay? It has to fight against that. And a constant pull of that material inertia towards disintegration and a relapse into the original inanimate. This word in very short, it means death. Okay? Constant pull of the material inertia towards disintegration. That which has been formed as a separate form of life, it has to be disintegrated. In other words, it will end in death. Okay? And a relapse into the original inanimate inconscience. All life forms, the life disappears, ends in death, and goes back into matter. So it goes back into the principle. This principle of coming from matter and going back into matter, okay, for all life forms, is the same for everything. Right up to all the 7 planes of consciousness have to undergo this principle of coming from a source and going back to the source. This is the thing. Right at the highest level also. What about the individual? The individual soul is coming from the divine and then going back into it. So it happens at the life level, at the mental level, at the supramental level also probably, and even at the highest level ultimately. But it takes longer and longer, of course, because if you are a realized soul, you may not want to go into the infinite divine. You may want to stay in a finite divine form. So it depends. But this is what he's saying. So, very complicated language, but this is like what basically he's saying. Life has to struggle against matter, and usually matter wins. Okay, so it ends in death. Constant pull of that material inertia towards disintegration and a relapse into the original inanimate inconscience. This separated life form, all living creatures, it may be a plant, it may be a small creature, it may be a cat, dog, or thing. This separated life form has also to affirm itself, supported only by a limited principle of association. Now, the disintegration is the opposite of association. All living creatures are created by association. Okay? Association of molecules gives you a living tissue. If there is any living tissue, it's an association of molecules. We don't think of it in that way, but that's exactly what it is. The moment there is disintegration, the molecules go back to where they came from. Okay? And then death. This separated life form has also to affirm itself, supported only by a limited principle of association. It's very limited. It lasts for a very short time. A caterpillar lasts, a butterfly for 1 week. A dog and cat, 13, 14 years. Okay, human beings, potentially up to 100 years. The big plants, even 400 years they live, but they're all time bound. Okay, that's what he's saying. Limited principle of association. The principle of association is limited unless it goes into the cosmic consciousness. There the association becomes complete. You associate yourself, you join yourself to everybody in the universe. That's the cosmic consciousness. So, but he's not talking of the cosmic consciousness, I'm explaining the word association. Okay, so it's the opposite of disintegration. Against an opposite world, which is, if not hostile to its existence, yet full of dangers, and on which it has to impose itself, conquer life form, arrive at expression and propagation, if it wishes to survive. So, if it wishes to survive, this is what it has to do. It has to fight against an environment which is hostile, and there are full of dangers, and it has to impose itself, conquer life room, arrive at expression and propagation if it wishes to survive. Now, arrive at expression and propagation, the characteristic of life is reproduction, if you remember. So it propagates itself. All animal forms and all plant forms also, they propagate themselves if they want to last. Because the individual form cannot survive. So you can survive only by association and propagation. Reproduce yourself. That's the only immortality you can have in the physical world. Okay. If it wishes to survive. And this propagation applies to everything. It applies to worms, it applies to plants, it applies to cats and dogs and even human beings. We propagate ourselves. You don't want to lose your family name. The family must be continued. That's why in India we want always sons. That's a wrong idea, but anyway, that's what you want always. So I go to the next sentence. The result of an emergence of consciousness in these conditions is the growth of a self-affirming, vital and physical individual. So the wanting to survive ends in this way. You make a self-affirming. He wants to definitely last. Okay? Vital and physical individual. A construction of nature of life and matter with a concealed psychic and spiritual true individual behind it, for which nature is creating this outward means of expression. So He has told you that there are two principles, if you remember. One principle is the real divine will in the inconscious. It is there. So that starts slowly becoming the divine presence, it becomes the soul and it becomes a psychic being. But there is the other material also, the material cause. So nature is producing the material cause and the divine will in the inconscient is producing the soul and the psychic being. So he has spoken about two, if you remember, two things. These two are combining and becoming this. Ultimately, you have to think of these two as Purusha and Prakriti. Okay? So this separated life form has also to affirm itself, supported only by a limited principle of association against an outside world which is, if not hostile to its existence, yet full of dangers and on which it has to impose itself, conquer life room, arrive at expression and propagation if it wishes to survive. Next, the result of an emergence of consciousness in these conditions, the limited conditions of inconscience, life and mind, is a growth of a self-affirming vital and physical individual, a construction of nature and matter with a concealed psychic or spiritual true individual behind it, for which nature is creating this outward means of expression. What is nature creating? Creating your body, creating your vital and your mind. And the psychic being is using this construction of nature. The psychic being is using this body, this house built by nature, which is a threefold nature it has. Body, matter, life and mind. Of which nature is creating this outward means of expression. The inner means of expression is different. As mentality increases, this vital and material individual takes the more developed form of a constantly self-affirming mental, vital and physical ego. So when the mentality comes up, the individuality starts becoming more and more real, but the real individual is behind. The outer becomes in the outer body, it becomes a physical ego. Okay. He's using a very interesting word, physical ego. Okay. Self-affirming mental ego, vital ego, physical ego. Even the body feels itself to be different from others. No? When you get a blow, the body is very conscious that it is not given itself a blow. It is coming from outside. So it's very conscious that something is coming from outside. Remember the definition of ego. Ego is that which makes you feel separate. Ego is equal to separation, the separate consciousness. The body also is then a physical ego. Our surface consciousness and type of existence, our natural being, has developed its present character under the compulsion of these two initial and basic facts of the evolutionary emergence. So, clear? Now I will introduce the idea of Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the divine will in matter. Okay? And slowly affirming itself, that Purusha starts becoming the soul and then the psychic being, and then it becomes the self. Okay? That's it. But the outer house, the construction is given by Prakriti, which is nature. So you can see the Purusha Prakriti principle starting in the evolution right from the lowest level. Okay, so a little complicated, the words are there, but we have substituted the words to make it simpler. Okay, you have to be a subtle understanding and a very interesting paragraph what he said. Okay, so 8:25, we have got 15 minutes, 14 minutes. We can read the next one. In its first appearance, remember what he's trying to do. He's trying to explain to you the origin of suffering, evil and falsehood. So he's telling you how slowly it's coming out with the inconscience. And at every level, there's a struggle, okay, to assert itself. But there's also a downward pull. Both are there. There's an upward pull of the soul and there's a downward pull of the inconscience. Okay, so who will read the next one? In its first appearance.
Shall I read?
Yes, please.
In its first appearance, Consciousness has the semblance of a miracle, a power alien to matter that manifested uncountably in a world of inconscient nature and grows slowly and with difficulty. Knowledge is acquired, created out of nothing, as it were, learned, increased, accumulated by an ephemeral, ignorant creature in whom at birth it is entirely absent or present only not as knowledge, but in the form of an inherited capacity proper to the stage of development of this slowly learning ignorance. It might be conjectured that consciousness is only the original inconscience mechanically recording the facts of existence on the brain cells with a reflex or response in the cells automatically reading the record and dictating their answer. The record, reflex, response together constitute what appears to be consciousness. But this is evidently not the whole truth, for it might account for observation and mechanical action, although it is not clear how an unconscious record and response can turn into a conscious observation, a conscious sense of things and sense of self, but does not credibly account of ideation, imagination, speculation, the free play of intellect with its observed material. The evolution of consciousness and knowledge cannot be accounted for unless there is already a concealed consciousness in things which its inherent and native powers emerging little by little. Further, the facts of animal life and the operation of the emergent mind in life impose on us the conclusion that there is in this concealed consciousness an underlying knowledge or power of knowledge which, by the necessity of the life contacts with the environment, comes to the surface.
Okay. So again, we'll do one thing. I will quickly get the summary and then we will see, go sentence by sentence. Okay, so this is the 15th paragraph of the chapter. Now, when first light, this is the summary I'm reading from what I have written out. Okay, so it's a summary of the whole paragraph. When first life emerges from matter, it is nothing short of a sheer miracle. How does dead matter become life, alive? How does something dead become alive? It's a miracle. The life form grows, becomes gradually more complex, learns, acquires knowledge. Where does the knowledge and consciousness come from? From matter, but it is dead, a blank of inconscience. So where does it come from? This power of learning, knowing, could be an inherited power from below in matter. It seems to be an ignorance which has the power to learn and to know. So it is coming from this. So it is hidden there already. Or it might be held that what we call consciousness is nothing but the inconscience mechanically recording sense data and as mechanically dictating a response. You could think that's a scientific view. Okay, consciousness is that it is recording and again giving an answer. But this scientific view is not satisfactory because many things are not explained. For instance, how can a mechanical record suddenly turn into a conscious response and a sense of egoistic self? Okay. I am doing the act. How does that come? Okay, so the objection is clear, na? He's saying if it's only recording, how can the recording suddenly give a conscious response? It can be a mechanical response, but it's a conscious response. Okay, because some impact is there on somebody. Two different people will react in two different ways. It's not a mechanical response. Okay. In any case, the mechanical theory cannot explain ideation, thinking capacity, imagination, free play of intellect. It cannot explain. So therefore, we have to throw out the scientific explanation. It's not mechanical. This emergent consciousness cannot be satisfactorily accounted for unless we accept the concept of involution. There, the principle is nothing can come out of nothing. Something has to already there, then only something can come out. A careful examination of animal life, their instincts, imposes on us the necessity of an involved underlying knowledge and consciousness in the inconscience itself. It is this involved consciousness that springs out of the inconscience of matter. This is what somebody is saying in the para. Okay. Again, we come back to the idea of the two principles are there in the evolution. One is the consciousness of the divine hiding inside the matter, okay, and the other is the material, what is available to it, the material with which the evolution takes place. Remember the two causes, efficient cause and original cause or material cause. The efficient cause is the soul. The material cause is matter. Okay, just as I said, that's why you use the word efficient cause. You always have two things. Okay, so Prakriti is giving the material cause, and Purusha is giving the efficient cause. Okay, so this is what you say. We go back to the beginning of the. We got 8 minutes. Let's see how far we can go. In its first appearance, consciousness has the semblance of a miracle. How can dead matter suddenly produce living, moving matter? How can it do that? A power alien to matter that manifests unaccountably in a world of inconscient nature and grows. Not only it comes out, but it is growing and slowly and with difficulty. Knowledge also is acquired. Even the animal has got knowledge. Which has to eat, what it has to eat, what it should not eat, what it should do. There is a knowledge. Very limited knowledge, but it is there. Created out of nothing, as it were, learned, increased, accumulated by an ephemeral, ignorant creature. Ephemeral, ignorant creature in whom, at birth, it is entirely absent. Okay. All these things are absolutely entirely absent when it is born. Okay. Or present only, not as knowledge, but in the form of an inherited capacity proper to the stage of development of the slowly learning ignorance. You are starting from ignorance, but it is a capacity to learn slowly. Okay, that capacity to learn is coming from the divine consciousness hiding inside the matter. Okay, so it might be conjectured. There can be a theory which Srivastava does not agree with, but he's discussing all the cases. And somebody may object and say that consciousness is only the original inconscience mechanically recording the facts of existence on the brain cells with a reflex or response in the cells automatically reading the record and dictating their answer. Just like our body accepts certain things and does not accept certain things. Okay, it's a reflex or response in the cells automatically recording and dictating the answer. The record, reflex, response together constitute what appears to be consciousness. In other words, awareness. When some impact from the physical world is there, there is usually a reaction. There is a response. So that you are calling consciousness. But that can be mechanical, certainly so. But if you look very carefully, you will see that mechanical response is not possible. To a certain extent, it is there. Okay. For instance, take the plants. Okay, that plant which is called Lajjapati. Okay, that mimosa plant. There is a response. You touch the plant, there is a response, but it's not a conscious response. It seems to be a mechanical response. So that's what science is saying. That even in human beings, it's a mechanical response. Now, Sridhar is challenging that theory. Okay. He says, but this is evidently not the whole truth, for it might account for observation and mechanical action, although it is not clear how an unconscious record and response can turn into a conscious observation, a conscious sense of things and sense of self. Okay? But does not credibly account for ideation, thinking capacity, imagination, speculation. Okay? Mechanically, it can't be. So, for instance, speculation, this is something that the robot cannot do as yet, perhaps. Okay? But that also they are saying that it is possible. Even the robots have the capacity to learn. Okay? So it's fantastic. It's explaining. In other words, it comes to this that all your body mind life is really nothing but a machine which is capable of learning. Okay? But it's a machine. It's mechanical. But science does not take into account the soul. No? So that soul is the one that is actually the cause of consciousness. But science doesn't get that. So, the free play of intellect is the observed material. Then he's saying the evolution of consciousness and knowledge cannot be accounted for unless there is already a concealed consciousness in things with its inherent and native powers emerging little by little. So in other words, now he's saying, if you take the principle of involution, then it becomes easy to understand. Okay? Otherwise, very difficult to explain evolution. Okay, so inherent powers emerging little by little. Little by little, why? First life, then mind, then even spiritual knowledge. All this comes slowly, step by step. Further, the facts of animal life and the operations of emergent mind in life impose on us the conclusion that there is in this concealed consciousness an underlying knowledge or power of knowledge which, by the necessity of the life contact with the environment, comes to the surface. So, slowly, as your response to world impacts on you increase, you start learning how to respond to them, and that's the consciousness that is slowly increasing. That's what it's saying. Okay? So, Chandra is now going into great detail to explain the origin of evil and suffering and falsehood. So this is he's going step by step. Okay? So we stop here today, 8:38. So, I wish, quite complicated, I must say.
Thank you, Rangata.
Yeah. But if you follow, it's fascinating. If you follow what the argument is. Okay, au revoir everybody. Have a nice day. Kiran, Shilpa, Janati, Suki, goodbye.
Au revoir, Rangata.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.